The 9th Latin America, India and the Caribbean Conclave is underway in New Delhi with attendees from Venezuela, Cuba, Mexico and Chile, among others. In Japan, Typhoon Khanun hit Okinawa Prefecture, leaving at least 1 dead and 11 injured. In Niger, people Hello from the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba. This is from the south. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. The 9th India, Latin America and the Caribbean Conclave began in New Delhi on Thursday with the participation of delegations from Venezuela, Cuba, Mexico and Chile, among other countries. Organized by the Confederation of Indian Industry, the event brings together ministers, senior government officials, leaders of regional bodies, industry experts and business persons. It aims to explore new avenues of collaboration, trade and investment between India and the Latin American and Caribbean region. In this context, the Executive Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, indicated that she will offer the Indian business persons present at the conclave the great investment opportunities that Venezuela has and to see the exportable offer. According to official figures, trade between both regions is around $50,000 million during the last year.
Nicolás Maduro has sent a large delegation that will participate precisely to showcase investment opportunities that Venezuela has with all its potential, also for its entire technological development, to see the exportable possibilities that our country has and above all the impact that the illegitimate blockade against Venezuela has had, how it has affected inter-regional trade relations, and how it has also affected trade with India. In a denunciation at the international level, the blockade against Venezuela is not only against the people of Venezuela, it is against the international community.
On the other hand, the Venezuelan vice president referred to the importance of India and the role of the BRICS in the construction of a multipolar world.
India is today, as you know, the third largest economic in the world, a member of the BRICS. Our president has already formalized the entry of Venezuela into the BRICS in his Energy Commission. And good, I repeat, an energy country, the largest reserve of the planet, at the service of its important bloc that is drawing a new internationality, new relations of cooperation at the international level, completely away from unilateralism and the true construction of multilateralism.
As part of the 9th conclave being held in India, Venezuelan officials in the area of technology propose a digital transformation plan and to dignify the educational base.
Therefore, the challenge for our region is to create inclusive educational infrastructures that allow training in computer and information technology for our young people and women. In addition to dignifying the educational base, we must recognize that we must also change the technical productive fabric and incorporate more technology-based companies in our industrial areas. This leap requires a significant effort in cooperation and complementarity.
On Thursday, the bilateral national and temporary ceasefire for 180 days between the State of Colombia and the ELN comes into force in Colombia by virtue of the agreements reached at the peace talks in Havana, Cuba on the 9th of June. A monitoring mechanism compounded by representatives of the government, the war force, and the verification mission will be implemented. This Wednesday, the Security Council approved the expansion of its mandate and, to this end, authorized an increase of up to 68 additional international observers to the mission's current strength. The government and the security forces previously warned that the truce does not imply a halt to the obligation to preserve the national territory and guarantee the order. As well as the first ELN commander Antonio Garcia explained that during the 180 days of the ceasefire, the guerrillas will maintain defensive operations to preserve the security and integrity of the force and its territories. On Thursday in the U.S. West Coast, the actors union SAG-AFTRA announced the resumption of negotiations between the screenwriters and the Hollywood studios after almost 100 days since the start of the strike. The union reported the Hollywood studios had resumed contact and asked for a meeting on Friday. It should be noted that the Screenwriters Guild of the United States had walked out of the talks on May the 2nd amid arguments over pay. The actors union confirmed the hiring of fewer writers for television shows and for a shorter length of time, plus the studio's refusal to state in writing that their jobs are protected from being replaced by artificial intelligence are the main points of disagreement. As whereas employers argue that the causes of the labor conflict have to do with cost cutting due to the economic pressures. On Thursday afternoon, the former U.S. President Donald Trump is scheduled to appear in court to respond to charges of election subversion efforts. Around 4 p.m. local time, the twice-impeached former president, who has now been indicted 3 times since leaving the White House, will be surrendering to federal authorities in Washington and entering a not guilty plea to charges that include conspiring to defraud the United States in seeking to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. Trump's arrangement starts the month-long pre-trial process that will run into the timetable of his other criminal trial next year, as well as the 2024 presidential race, where he remains the front-runner for the Republican nomination. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find the news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Portugal, the first day of World Youth Day celebrations concluded with a meeting of Pope Francis with victims of pedophilia, whose number of cases exceeds more than 4,000 complaints since the 1950s, the Vatican said in a statement. This is a 5-day visit to Portugal. The pontiff met with sexual abuse victims committed by members of the Portuguese clergy 6 months after a devastating report for the church in his country. According to the Holy See, a group of 13 people were received at the Nunciature. Pope Francis had previously expressed his concern about this issue to the Portuguese ecclesiastical hierarchy when he expressed disappointment regarding the functioning of his institution that in some cases unheard and overlooked testimonies and victims. For its part, the Church said that this meeting shows its interest in resolution and to find the path of reconciliation. Now we move on to other topics. On Thursday in Russia, Vyacheslav Svavcha, the governor of the Kaluga region, said that air defense systems successfully intercepted and eliminated 6 Ukrainian drones attempting to enter the region without causing casualties. In this sense, the Defense Ministry also confirmed their forces thwarted a terrorist drone attack in the Kaluga region, less than 200 kilometers from Moscow. Russia had previously threatened to intensify attacks on Ukrainian military infrastructure in response to drone attacks on its territory. It should be noted that Kiev has increased the number of long-range missile and drone strikes against Russian cities, coinciding with a failed counteroffensive of the front line. Ukraine is suffering huge losses both in the air and on the ground, as Ukrainian armed forces are caught in minefields and artillery ambushes and lose essential Western equipment and vehicles. Now we address other topics. In the UK on Thursday, a group of mothers and their children gathered near Downing Street to protest against the government's decision to grant more than 100 new oil and gas licenses in the North Sea. The demonstrations come after the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has backed plans to drill new fossil fuel fields near the Shetland Islands of Scotland, as well as other sites in the nearby North Sea. This prospect has enraged environmental campaigners who accused the British leader of lacking conviction in his climate policies and playing politics with the issue as he prepares for next year's general election amid a cost of living crisis. The main opposition Labour Party, well ahead in the polls, declared earlier this year that it will not grant new North Sea drilling licenses if it regained power after more than a decade in opposition.
And for my daughter, we're with a group of moms and dads and parents and carers who are just horrified that we... Yeah, I'm here for him and for my daughter. We're with a group of moms and dads and parents and carers who are just horrified that the Prime Minister is issuing new oil and gas licenses and torpedoing green policies when we could be investing in renewables and having cheaper energy that actually protects our planet for the future of our kids.
Thursday in Japan, a new demonstration was held in rejection of the discharge of polluted water into the Pacific Ocean. Protesters rallied outside the headquarters of the Tokyo Electric Power Company, the operator of the crippled nuclear plant. They claimed that wastewater from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant has come into contact with melted nuclear fuel fragments and will ultimately affect seafood consumption, fishermen's livelihood, and consumers' welfare. For their part, parliamentarians of China, North Korea, and South Korea have traveled to Tokyo to express their disagreement. Regardless of international outcries and over 80% of the population openly rejecting the measure, the Japanese government plans to start the offloading process in the ocean, started in August, in an operation that could take 20 to 30 years.
The Japanese government is deceiving the Japanese people. The nuclear contaminated water at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station, though the government called it 3D water, was contaminated water that has contacted with melted nuclear fuel fragments. For domestic consumption in Japan, seafood will become unsafe and no one will buy it, and the lives of fishermen will become very difficult. The same goes for consumers. I have children and grandchildren. I don't want them to eat unsafe food.
In Japan, Typhoon Khanun hit Okinawa Prefecture on Wednesday, leaving at least 1 dead and 11 injured. The deceased was a 90-year-old man who was trapped in a garage, collapsed by the strong winds, and perished in the hospital. The Japan Fire and Disaster Management Agency said that 11 people were injured by both the winds and the floods. The local power company reported power outages in 210,000 homes. However, authorities called on the people of Okinawa to be on the alert for landslides and flooding due to heavy rains caused by the phenomenon. And the Indonesian government on Thursday sent emergency aid to the drought-stricken province of Papua. Indonesian authorities reported that in total 17.1 tons of aid was sent to the impoverished region of Puncak, including thousands of instant food parcels and hundreds of tents and blankets. On Tuesday, authorities in Papua province reported the deaths of 6 people, including a baby, from starvation and dehydration, while thousands have been left without water since June in the wake of the drought. Disaster experts blamed the El Niño weather phenomenon, usually associated with a rise in global temperatures, for the drought and extreme cold. Papua province has a population of approximately 800,000 people, making it one of the most depopulated provinces in Indonesia. And teleSUR English launches its own videos on demand site for you to go and revisit our interviews, the top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Just go to the top left corner on our website homepage and click on the video option to access our VOD platform. And now we will have a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Israel's Supreme Court upheld a petition on Thursday against a law that protects Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from being removed from office. According to the complaint, the amendment grants impunity to anyone facing trial for corruption. Thousands of protesters gathered outside the Supreme Court as the justices heard the petition of the Movement for Quality Government in Israel against Netanyahu. The complaint points to an amendment passed by the ruling coalition in March, which prevents the removal removal of a prime minister from office as illegal. The hearing came as the executive tries to pass a series of judicial reform bills aimed at curtailing the power of the Supreme Court and giving the ruling coalition control over the appointment of judges, a move registered by mass marches across the country.
Today in the Supreme Court because the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, basically legislated a constitutional amendment in one of the basic laws of Israel, changing the incapacity law and allowing Benjamin Netanyahu, who is under charges in court today, to basically escape away from any review by the Supreme Court about the fact that he's working today as a prime minister in a conflict of interest that with his charges in the court.
In Niger, people demonstrate in support of the military government and against the foreign interference, coinciding with Independence Day on Thursday. Supporters of the so-called National Council for the Safeguarding of the Homeland and the civil society groups gather in Niamey, the capital of Niger. Amid rising anti-imperialist sentiments, the rally coincides with the 63rd anniversary of the Declaration of Independence of this former French colony. Organizers of the protest stated that the immediate departure of all foreign forces still remaining in the country has been requested. The leader of the de facto government, Abdurrahman Tiani, expressed his rejection to the sanctions imposed by the countries of West Africa and affirmed that he will not yield to the threats of a military intervention.
Not to Economic Community of West African States and West African Economic and Monetary Union. Not to any force that wants to destabilize our country. We want our country to take the path of its sovereignty and the dignity of its people. We sincerely thank the authority of Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Algeria, Mauritania, and all the African authorities who have shown their solidarity with our country.
On Wednesday, a delegation of the de facto government of Niger paid a visit to the leadership of the military government of Mali. The Nigerian delegation, headed by one of the coup leaders, General Salifou Mori, met with Colonel Azimi Goïta, who has been at the head of the Malian government since June 2021. At the meeting, the parties discussed the implementation of a strategy of struggle and common support. Following the meeting, the Nigerian delegation left for Burkina Faso, where they are expected to meet with the ruling military junta. Recently, after Niger's coup, Burkinabe and Malian's military juntas pledged to protect the coup-born government of that nation. Meanwhile, according to the Senegalese Foreign Minister Aïssata Tall Sall, Senegal will take part in a possible military intervention in Niger if the Organization of West African States, ECOWAS, decides to do so following the coup in Niamey on July 26.
ECOWAS thought it was time to put an end to it. Now yes, to answer the question definitely, the Senegalese military for all these reasons will be going. As I speak, the chief of staff of the ECOWAS member states are meeting to see what the modus operandi will be. Once the political decision has been taken at the highest level and at community level. So yes, our soldiers will go. How they will go, they are still in the process of consulting each other on that.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.